1 second here. Okay. So on behalf of DIIT, welcome. I'm actually going to be holding it down for this session today, as Lisa and Christina had conflicting meetings, unfortunately so. However, I just want to say welcome. We made it another Friday. I'm Laura Ogando, Program Manager for the Office of Digital Literacy and Inclusion, helping folks make digital content accessible and also infuse digital literacy into your curriculum. So I'm so happy to be here. And we have our folks from Library Services who you'll hear from in just a moment, but it's definitely going to be another great session. I can't wait. This is always the highlight of my week.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. Please jump on in.
So I'm Michael Doge from Library Services. I'm here with Melissa Jacobs, who's the Director of Library Services, and Regis Kustiliak, I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Regis Kustiliak, who is from Overdrive, which is the company that powers Sora, the library that we're going to be exploring today. I want to thank everyone for being here on this Friday, giving us your time, and we've got some really, really exciting things to share with you. If you don't know about Sora, you're about to. And before we jump in with Regis, I just want to share that Sora is uploaded on all the DOE iPads that are across the city. So there's no question of loading an app that you don't have access to. It's automatically tied into all the students' accounts. So you don't need to set up a new account, and it's free. We all like free, right? And I want to turn it over to, before I turn it over to Regis, Melissa, do you want to add?
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. I always am so grateful that we make it to the end of another week, because these weeks feel like they are a year long in itself. So today is going to be a really exciting session because we're going to talk about the Citywide Digital Library. And I am thrilled that we have this opportunity to share with you. I will say, let's see if we can do this. Polling. Okay. Can I add a poll in here?
Not once the meeting has started, I think. I'm sorry.
I won't add a poll. But if you know, if you're familiar, let's go this way because I think the number will be less. If you're familiar with the Citywide Digital Library on Sora and have used Sora, drop it in the chat because I want to hear from you. If you have no knowledge of the Citywide Digital Library and this is all brand new to you, then by the end of this session, I'm hoping that your mind is going to be completely blown and that you're going to be ready to figure out how to promote this with your students at next year, actually next week, sorry, and next year, because it is sustainable and we are going to be using this, I'm hoping, for a very, very long time. So
Melissa, thank you for that quick yeah, Melissa, thank you for sharing that because we're super excited for this presentation.
Woohoo!
I'm going to turn it, yeah, we're super excited. I think Laura has one more announcement to get us started, and then we just can't wait to start on Digital Friday.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Thank you all. And again, I'm so excited for Library Services. We're going to run through our updates fairly quick because we're keeping it on the light side to get to this wonderful opportunity. But welcome again on behalf of the team. Going to turn it over to Derry for some quick updates from FACE.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Laura. Totally, like, we're just jumping back and forth and I love this. This is what we do. I love Fridays. So quick update, you guys, I am Derry Rodriguez. I am from the Office of Family Community Empowerment. You guys know me. And I just want to say welcome to our Digital Friday. I do have one announcement. As you all know, this month is Mental Health Month. And with that, we are partnering up with the Department of Health to provide some wonderful workshops on mental health. In the screen, you will see the dates that we have available. It's just one workshop, but it's offered at different times, either in the morning, in the afternoon. So please take advantage of those workshops. I want to ask Laura actually to go back to the previous slide, which is Watch Party Wednesday. We are down to the get down. We are almost done. The next watch party is June 9th, And what we're going to talk about that day is recharge, summer recharge. So we know in the summertime, especially during this pandemic, families just needed recharge. In the chat, raise your hand, virtual hands. Actually, no, don't raise your virtual hands. In the chat, let me know if you're ready for a recharge, because I'm ready and I know our parents are ready. So what we're going to do on June 9th is just talk about some strategies to get our families recharged and ready for the fall. I do have a question that I do want to raise really quickly in the chat. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Laura. But I would love to know, what is one thing that shifted for you? What's one new approach you have taken to increase virtual engagement? And the reason why I asked that is that on June 23rd is our last watch party of the year. So we're going to do a party for the party. And what we need, it's all about you. We want to celebrate what you have done this year to engage families in the virtual community. So I will add that in the chat because I know that you're doing amazing work, especially during this pandemic. So we want to know your strategy. What is your approach? What is your method to increase parent engagement in your school community and in your district? So again, turning one more slide, which is again the DOH. These are the dates for you guys to keep in mind, take advantage, make sure you do some self-care and also some mental health check. And we will see you guys on May 20th at 9:30. So that's my announcements for FACE. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to know more about the library resources. So thank you so much to Laura and the digital Friday team for providing this wonderful opportunities for us. Get ready, guys, because I love free. Thank you. Turning it back over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Derry. All right, and really quickly, Tally's not here. Again, she gets pulled into a lot of stuff. She's actually going to be here next week, though, so we'll get the full session with her. But she knew that library services was coming today. She wanted to share some resources on Wide Open School, some reading and writing support. So you know how we do. We love to show off Wide Open School because it's another great resource. Also 100% free. And what's great about this is the resources on here are all vetted. So you know that you're getting quality stuff. So you go to reading and writing, and then you click on your grade band. So if you're looking something for the high schoolers, you know, you can absolutely get the high school stuff. And then what I love here too, is that it's then even broken down by types of resources. So if you're looking for, you know, an article or ebook, you've got that. But if you're looking for video resources, you've got that too. So love, love, love the resources on Wide Open School, and they can absolutely act as a supplement for the resources you share that library services are going to show us. All right. And then really quickly, you may have remembered about a few weeks ago, we had Guillermo Tejada share with us some information about the emergency broadband benefit. Well, guess what? It is officially open for application. So I do want to show this. We'll drop this link into the chat. In fact, Latiqua, the link is in the notes section. So if you could do me a favor and drop that link for folks. But look, here's what I want to show. When you get access to the link, look, the application process is now open. So before it was like they announced it and you kind of could see the eligibility, but guess what? It is now available. So you can share this with your families. Some of the big highlights to note is that it's going to provide eligible families up to $50 per month towards broadband service and a one-time discount up to $100 to purchase a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet from participating providers. Caveat with that is families must provide kind of like a little down payment, so to speak, towards the purchase price. But you know, again, a discount's a discount. So that's one of the benefits for that. Eligibility, you do need to receive benefits under the free and reduced price school lunch program, have received a federal Pell Grant, meet the eligibility criteria for participating in broadband providers' existing low-income program, and if you experience a substantial loss of income since February 29th of 2020, then that can also qualify, folks. So Latiqua has gone ahead and dropped that link into the chat, all right? This is the website, and you can share this with your families and let them know that the application process has started, all right? So that's the big news on that front. And I wanted to share it with all of you here because I know how important this is going to be for so many in your community. All right, let's get into our polling and find out who is in our Zoom room. So really quick here, I'm going to launch our poll. You should see that up on your screen. Let us know who you are. We anticipate it's a lot of PCs, but we also know we get some FLCs, some FSCs. There's always a handful of teachers on the call too. And if you happen to be the other, you know the drill. Let us know in the chat because we're nosy. I'd like to know who we're talking to. All right, and I see we have a community coordinator. Welcome to Shalana. Also welcome to Regina, also a community coordinator. And because again, we're alphabet soup over here, I see people writing STH community coordinator. Tell me what the STH is. I don't know what that means either.
It means students in temporary housing.
Oh, got it. All right. See, and
So
I
we
actually do
have
know that
STH
acronym.
liaisons. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes, welcome to everyone. See, this is what happens when we use acronyms. Like, I do know that term. You know, never thought.
You know, it took me a while to learn the acronyms, but I'm super excited to see some new folks and some other family liaisons on the line. Hope you guys like my hat. Laura,
I love
so
your hat, Derry.
looks like we power coordinators are winning again.
Yep. So I'm going to give folks 2 more seconds and I'm going to end our poll. So welcome to all our PCs, our FLCs, our FSCs. We got a soul teacher on the line, so welcome, and welcome to everyone, whether this is your first time showing up, your second time, or you know, this is you showing up for like all the times. Welcome. We greatly appreciate that you take time out of your day to join us in this professional learning opportunity. Let me launch our next poll. 1 second here. How are we feeling? You know how we are. We're the touchy-feely group, clearly. So let us know how you're feeling. Remember, not pictured, but always an option for you to pick. H, none of the above, or I, all the feelings. And it is perfectly okay to pick I, right? I think a lot of us live in the all the feelings zone.
I don't think
most of us
anyone
is
has
feeling
asked me
happy.
how I feel. That is such a good question.
Melissa,
I would
folks.
like to check all the boxes though, because that's how I feel over the last year, all simultaneously, slightly overwhelmed.
So you're saying that you're I. You got to scroll down for I. I is all the feelings. That was actually a request from this group. When we first started doing these polls, that's literally what people said, Melissa. They were like, can we have an all of the above?
Yeah, that's me. I'm all of the above. And I appreciate you, Laura, for asking that question.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. All right, we are going to go ahead and end this poll. So last 2 seconds, wrap it up. And there we go. So, and I will share the results because guess what? We are overwhelmingly happy, which makes me really happy because this is going to be a fabulous session. I'm so excited. So really quickly before we get into it, know that Common Sense will be here next week. So Tally will join us for the full hour and a half, giving us some great resources that you can share with your families. Michaela will then be back for the next 2 weeks after that, sharing some more translation tools in Microsoft Office, and then specifically looking at Microsoft Stream and some of the features of Stream. But with that, it is finally time to turn it on over to our folks at Library Services. So thank you so much to Michael and to Melissa. Thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with them both very closely over this past year, and they are fabulous. And I'm so excited for you to see all of the wonderful resources. So let me stop sharing my screen so that they can get on with their program.
Excellent, thank you. And Regis, I believe you're going to share the PowerPoint, the deck.
Yes, and my screen should be sharing now. Does everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Perfect.
Excellent. So we have built the Citywide Digital Library, and we're going to jump right into this presentation, but I just wanted to share, because this is only second time of me seeing the logo. We have branded this. This is such an amazing platform and such an amazing library that we had to create our own brand. So here it is, the Citywide Digital Library. Here is our logo. And we're going to talk about how you can use this for summarizing, but also just in general to meet the literacy needs of your students. And I'm going to not talk anymore and let Regis take it over for the time being.
Thanks,
Oh.
Melissa. I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you, everyone, for inviting Melissa and Michael and myself. My name is Regis. I'm the Overdrive account manager for the New York City Department of Education. I was checking the chat and I saw that we have some folks that are familiar with Sora, some folks that have never heard of it, and that's totally okay. Just for a little bit of context or background information, you may be familiar with Overdrive from the public library. You may have used the Overdrive app or the Libby app to access your public library's ebooks and audiobooks. So whereas Libby is the public library app, Sora is the school app on which you're going to access the Citywide Digital Library. So with that said, just a few things we're going to run through today. We're going to talk about the Citywide Digital Library, what it is, how you can connect your students to the more than 15,000 titles and counting. We're going to talk about how to access, how to log in, and sort of a high level look as we actually demo Sora, go in there and take a look at some of the features. We'll talk about applying this to summer rising, and we'll sort of mention that throughout, but how you can connect your students before the summer, get them logged in. A really key part of having a digital library is that your students will have access to these resources even when they're not in the school buildings, even when they're away for summer break or any other breaks. And then we'll talk next steps. We have some resource links that we can point you to. I know Derry was talking about what have you been doing to market and increase your marketing and promotional stuff with online resources. We have a lot of those resources already created for you. So hopefully that will make this easier as you reach out to the rest of your school community. And now we're going to jump in, and I want to turn it back over to Melissa to give you sort of the brief introduction to the Citywide Digital Library.
I am so excited. Okay, so books make me excited and libraries make me even more excited. So during the pandemic, well, let's actually go back to the beginning of the pandemic. So March 13th, 2020, I was actually moving on that day into a new house. Yay, everyone should not move on a pandemic. But what was happening was we were pivoting very quickly during this process to our remote environment. And as we were doing that, obviously ebooks have been a constant conversation for librarians. And it's like, okay, well, how do we get books into the kids' hands? Like immediately, we're like right now. And the only format that was available was and is ebooks for that to support remote learning. But there's an extensive use of ebooks, and we need to make sure that we understand the sustainability of what we've built during the pandemic. So at this time, we had lots of different platforms and different publishers kind of all over the place for ebooks. So you could go here for one thing, here for another. I'm sure you're very familiar with some of the platforms, like you go to Mayan. I know Epic was thrown in there. Everyone was doing a whole bunch of different free things. You find a PDF on the internet. Everyone wants to be able to just get the books into the kids' hands, the virtual hands. And not always kosher, not always the right thing to do, because a lot of those PDFs and things that you find on the internet, although they're there and accessible, doesn't mean that it's right to use it. So we connected with Overdrive, and we've been trying to have a platform in the DOE that would provide us the ability to purchase books from multiple publishers and trade books. And from that, we were able to secure a contract, and we started to develop a collection. We have grown that collection over the last year to over 15,000 titles. I just put another purchase order in, so it's probably about 16,000 at the moment. But we have hundreds of thousands of copies of these books. That means class sets. That means multiple copies for independent reading. That means accessibility. That means equity. this is built through a CRSE lens. It is a diverse collection, hand selected by school librarians from around the city. And it is a curated collection of books that we have built and is available to all of you and to all of your students. So there is a single sign-on, meaning you connect with your DOE email and credentials so that your students log in with their nicenet.edu credentials and you're logging in with your schools.nyc.gov credentials. And we're going to dive in and talk about the collections and what is available there. Next, let's give an overview. And this is a top level overview of what is the Citywide Digital Library on Sora.
And so essentially Sora is the platform that houses the Citywide Digital Library and the collection of these books. But it's exciting because not only do you have access to those almost 16,000 titles and hundreds of thousands of copies through Melissa's team in the Citywide Digital Library, you also have access then to the public library collections. So your students can access any of the 3 New York City public libraries, the Queens Public Library, the New York Public Library, and the Brooklyn Public Library. Another exciting thing there is you'll see what you're logging in with here. If you're using any of the public libraries, you'll sign in with a public library card. It's excellent as long as your students have that, and we'll go over what to do if they don't have a public library card. They can log in, and the benefit of logging in using Sora is that it's going to filter their available books to only what's appropriate based on their grade level. Because they're logging into Sora with their DOE credentials, we can verify what grade they're in and make sure that they're not seeing any 50 Shades of Grey, no romance novels, nothing too inappropriate. So you have that level of security there. The other nice thing is that the Queens Public Library has agreed to forego the need for library cards. So if you have one, we absolutely recommend using it because that's your library card, that's your student's library card. But if your students don't have a Queens Public Library card, they can log in with the same DOE credentials that they're using to access the Citywide Digital Library. And so now you have these almost 16,000 titles in the Citywide Library. You've got 20,000, almost 25,000 for each public library as well. So you're really connecting your students to a plethora of high interest, really engaging, diverse titles that, as Melissa mentioned, and I want to highlight this again, curated by librarians, right? The Citywide Digital Library, it's school librarians, and at the public libraries, obviously public librarians. But that's so important because this is really high quality content, vetted content. You're not just getting whatever, the vendor we Overdrive are passing out that day, or the free titles that are with our free platform. These are really incredible titles here.
I want to stop you right there.
Please.
I want to help people understand the importance and that how this is a game changer. Because prior to this, there was not an equitable platform available to our students. And so and a lot of teachers I saw during the pandemic were just accessing and finding things online and using them. And unfortunately, that's not okay. It's not okay to find an ebook online that is a PDF or photocopy or something and then use it with your students. Like, it is against the law. There are copyright laws, and that information is intellectual property of somebody, either the author, the publisher. And so when our teachers are doing that and they're teaching and showing our students that it's okay to do that, that's a problem. So one, I want to protect the licenses, the intellectual property of authors, and I want to make sure that all of you are not breaking the law by sharing PDFs or other random things that you're finding on the internet, because I know your heart's in the right place, and those teachers' hearts are in the right place. They just want to teach their lesson. They need the material right away, but there is an appropriate way of going about getting that content. So that's one.
Melissa, I'm so happy that Laura put in the chat here. Not only is it against the law, but it's also highly inaccessible, right? When you're using a PDF, you are not providing for those students that have accessibility issues or need accessibility tools. And we're going to highlight some of those tools in Sora, but that is such an important thing that people, I know we were all in a rush, but it really is worth considering.
The other thing is the accessibility. And that is the digital accessibility, making sure that there are privacy issues with some content, making sure that this is a platform that is meeting those standards that are established by the federal government, by the state government, by the city government, and that the information and the identity of students is protected. And there are laws that protect the information that our students access and the way that students access it. And so this is set up so that that information is protected. There are other platforms available there that I'm sure you've used that don't meet that criteria. So I know that your heart's in the right place. You want to get books into your kids' hands, but be very, very cognizant of what you're connecting your students to. The final thing is equity. And equity here is having a collection that is available to all students anywhere at any time. And so I know someone said that they serve students that are in homeless shelters. As long as they have a device, they can access our collection. I know that, and I know also that a lot of our kids are working remotely from various reasons, for various places. They can access the collection. You go on summer vacation. I hope we all have a long summer vacation. You can access the collection. This is available on a tablet. It's available on a laptop. It's available on a desktop. It's available on a phone, and it will save your spot. And we're going to talk about that for all of our in a minute. But
Wonderful.
Understanding that not every school has a library. Yes, they should. Yes, it's the law that every school should have a library, but not everyone does. Now you do. You have a school library collection that's available to all your students. And our plan is to continue to support and purchase titles for this, because even though it is free for you to use, Teaching and Learning at the Division of Teaching and Learning at the DOE is purchasing and selecting each of these titles. So we're buying this to create and buying each of these titles to create a collection for all of you. And that's a very big difference between accessing something free from the internet and accessing something that we have built and hand selected for you and your students.
And Melissa, as you mentioned, earlier, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had all of these disparate programs all over different parts of the internet that we were having students log into separately. And the idea now is that we're moving everything into one platform, whether it's your citywide digital library collection, public library collections. Schools have the ability and have been this entire year to build out their own collections as well, whether that's for curricular purposes and procure some of the books that are in their curriculum as ebooks or audiobooks, or to build their own school library that they have access to and would only circulate with just their students. So we're bringing everything together. You'll see that we also in Sora use collections to share titles with students, and we'll talk about that a little more, but we just want to highlight here how easy it is to grab a link and share it. So I think it was Derry earlier that mentioned it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Melissa and her team of librarians have a collection specifically addressing that and have books that address those issues. You can quickly copy that link and share it to students, share it as a class. So it's very easy to keep people on the same page and to help with discoverability of books and different collections. I want to slow down for a minute and talk about audiobooks, because often when we're talking about digital libraries, digital books, everyone's familiar with ebooks at this point. But believe it or not, we're in 2021 and audiobooks are one of the fastest growing modes of reading. And I may refer to it as ear reading, as some people call it, right? Because you are really reading. You're just using your ears, you're listening. Audiobooks are a great tool for students, and especially when we're talking about accessibility. If you have students that are reading below grade level, have trouble focusing on print text, audiobooks are an excellent either alternative or addition to supplemental tool to use with either print books or ebooks. And there's a lot of research that shows that students who listen to a book while it's being read aloud as they're reading the print version, their comprehension goes through the roof. They have such an easier time doing it. It's also going to help students with vocabulary, to model pronunciation and some of the phonics skills they're developing. It's great for ELL students, MLL students. If they're acquiring new language skills, they get to hear that language read aloud to them. And again, with audiobooks, it's a professionally narrated book. So you're not just listening to a screen reader. It's not a robotic voice. It is really a high level of production value, excellent narrators. And the same way as when we were kids and someone would read a story to us, the more invested they were, the more animated they were, the more they did voices or really bought into it. I mean, you have professional actors and actresses reading these books to you. So it's a great experience for your students. And it's a great way to be able to read over the course of the summer. So you can see that little graphic there. You can listen while you run, study, clean, relax, snack, whatever it is. Melissa and I have been talking about audiobooks a lot lately. And me personally, I like to listen to audiobooks. I like to get my reading in while I'm cooking or while I'm cleaning up around the house. And it's just another way to get that practice in while you're doing other things. So it's a really great thing to be talking about, because folks don't think about audiobooks in that way or quite as frequently. But when you have students that are trying to read the same books that their classmates are reading, whether it's for curriculum or just to keep up because they're not reading at that level, be pushing them towards audiobooks, be making sure that they're aware of them. Melissa has curated a lot of great collections, whether it's the new audiobooks collection you see there, bilingual audiobooks in Spanish. So there are these great resources that you should be aware of, and we'll talk about audiobooks when we demo Sora. Melissa, anything else to mention here about audio?
The accessibility features of audio are just so valuable here, because I never appreciated listening to a story. My mind wanders. My mind is just, I'll be driving in a car, have an audiobook in, and 5 miles later, I'm going, what the heck just happened in that story? But I realized by using this platform, you can change and adjust the speeds of text. And so I sped up the story being read, and I can pay attention now. It's changed the way I read, completely just turned it upside down. And so I am now able to, and I enjoy, and that's the big piece, I enjoy listening to books. And so I think for a lot of our kids, they may not have ever thought about audio. And for a lot of our teachers, where they say, okay, well, you have to read the actual physical text on a page. I think that needs to change. I think if we're going to differentiate for learners, we need to differentiate for readers as well.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, and so the next thing I want to talk about, Melissa, is your cooperative collection development. And you mentioned schools not having a library or not having access to a librarian in their school. So would you please just talk about this program, explain what it is and how it impacts those schools, especially that don't have access to those libraries?
I am so excited about our cooperative collection development program. And yes, it's a mouthful, cooperative collection development. We call it CCD, which goes on another whole acronym confusion direction. But basically what this is it's a program where we have specialized collections. And prior to the pandemic, these specialized collections have been in individual schools. And we work with librarians. They're given a grant to develop the collection. I see the librarian that is maintaining these collections as a subject specialist. Fast forward to the pandemic, having the Citywide Digital Library, it has dramatically impacted this program, because I've asked those librarians that manage those collections that were only accessible in those individual school libraries to build a collection on Sora. And so we've purchased titles based on their subjects that they are specialized, that they've built collections on. And we've created the collections that are now accessible to everybody in the city. In addition to that, our CCD collections were limited to the school that they were in, but they were also limited to the grade levels that they were of that school. So we had a lot of middle school or high school focused collections, but the subject matter was relevant to K through 12. So I'll use our graphic novel collection, which is at the bottom of the screen there. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That graphic novel collection has been curated by the librarian at Marine Park. Esther Keller has been curating that collection for well over 10 years, and it's been mainly focused around middle school. Her kids really reaped the benefits of her skill set to build that collection, and we were funding it at her school. She provided professional development, and she provided, some unique programming for us. But really, if anyone wanted to access that collection, they had to go to that school. Now, this collection is not only for middle school, we've built the collection to meet the needs K through 12. So we have graphic novels at your early literacy, at your young juvenile level, up to general adult. And so this collection is now really available across the board, K through 12, and we were able to capture the expertise of our subject specialist, librarian Esther Keller, to build this collection and make it available for everybody. That changes just the entire focus of our cooperative collection program. And so we've just added an additional 10 collections and are building up the curated collections on Sora. We've indicated if it is a CCD collection and the librarian that is curating it. And we're also looking through a CRSE lens using our collection development policy and building it K through 12. And so I am so excited because this collection, the Citywide Digital Library, is now a collection that is built by school librarians, not just my team, but school librarians throughout the entire city. And that's really important to know that we are building this and making it available for everybody.
And Melissa, that's what I love about the name, the Citywide Digital Library. It indicates exactly what it is. It is citywide, it is for everybody, and it's a digital library filled with resources that you could use in almost any instance.
Yes, and if anyone knows me, my passion is school libraries. I work myself to the bone just trying to get every school on board with having a school library. It's not going to happen for everybody. I don't want to look at it that way, but I don't have the energy to waste on getting every single kid access, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. It might happen in a few years, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. In the meantime, those kids need access. And so the Citywide Digital Library gives them access to these materials. They don't benefit from the instruction and having that school librarian, but at least they'll have access to a curated collection of materials. So this is equity.
And we're going to go to the next slide, but Derry has a great question here. Do we have books in different languages?
Yes, we do have books in different languages, and we are curating the collections in multiple languages. Currently, we have a collection in Spanish, and we have a collection in Chinese. We are working on the additional collections. I'm working on French, I'm working on German, I'm working on all the DOE languages. What the challenge is that not every publisher publishes in those DOE languages, and not all content is available digitally. So the other titles are a little more challenging to be able to purchase. In addition to that, I speak English. I speak Brooklyn English, but it's English, and that's the only language I speak. So my limitation is curating in English only. I am looking for librarians to curate in languages that they speak and read in fluently, because I don't want to pick a book that is not age appropriate, that is, totally Brooklynese. That's my language. that's not, pick a book in a language that I don't speak. I need to know that this material is vetted. So we did provide a training to librarians in how to curate in other languages. And I do have several librarians that are building those collections. So they will be coming. In addition, we've built a collection, not just a bilingual and a translation collection in Spanish, but we built an own voice collection in Spanish. So those are books that are written by the author in Spanish that are written in their own voice. And I think that is really important. And that is one of our goals, to build the collection with titles that are written in multiple languages in those languages. So it's not just a translation, because some things are just lost in translation.
It's not, it's a little bit better than just having Harry Potter in Spanish, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to speak for a moment about adding a public library. We'll send the slide deck out so that everyone has access. But there's just some steps. This link will help you to get a public library card. So it's a LibGuide from the Department of Library Services. If you or your students don't have a public library card to any of the 3 New York public libraries, you are entitled to go ahead and get one. Even if you don't live in New York City, if you work in New York City, you can get a library card to any of those 3 libraries.
And that's really important, because if you're looking for a specific title and you want your kids to have access to that title and you need multiple copies of it, so we have a limited number of titles in our collection we are buying multiple copies, but we are also serving the 1.1 million students in the DOE. So we're not buying 1.1 million copies of each individual title. However, we do have 25, 30, 100, maybe a few hundred of a specific title, that more popular ones that are used on a regular basis. If you add your public libraries and you add your public library cards outside of Queens, because Queens is accessible to everybody, you now have the ability to borrow a book from those public libraries and see if they have it available. So our goal is to limit holds to a very limited time frame. And when you put a book on hold, that means you're in a wait, you're waiting online for it to be returned. We want to drop that number considerably. And so we want to make it accessible. And by adding the public libraries, you now have more opportunities to find the book that you're looking for. In addition, this is a game changer, because again, as I said, having this all in one place is really important. And so it's not just going out into Sora, using Sora on the Citywide Digital Library, but if kids are accessing the public library resources, the public library ebooks and audiobooks on this platform, they're not leaving the platform. They're still using the tools of Sora to read that book. And that's really important, and we're going to talk about setting up your settings for the individual reader, but having that one portal, that one frame for each individual reader is really important.
So the next thing I want to talk about is logging in. Lots of questions coming into the chat about it. Melissa mentioned this at the beginning, but we refer to Sora as device agnostic, which means that as long as you have internet access, you can log on to the device. As an added feature, the books are available offline. So you can be connected to the internet, check out a book, download it, and then go about your business wherever you need to be and have access to that book. As such, you can log into Sora with either the app that's available in the Apple App Store, the iOS App Store. It's already installed on all student iPads. So you can just click on the Sora app. These are the steps to get to the NYC DOE page. Just, I have a setup code, and you'll see it should play here. Let's see if this video is going to play for me. You can just say, I have a setup code, enter in NYC schools, you'll tap to confirm, and then you'll log in with your DOE student account. That's your at nycstudents.net, for staff members at schools.nyc.gov. I think we got a question about parents logging in. I could be mistaken, so Melissa, anyone else, feel free to correct me. I don't believe parents have NYC credentials, so we recommend logging in with your students, logging in with your student accounts, working with them. especially to get the students logged in the first time. But then if they're in there and using the student account, feel free to check a book out, feel free to read with your students.
And we have
Regis,
no
can I
intention of adding parent access to this. This is intended for student use and teacher use.
Michael-
So, what books can parents not see on their kids' account then? Like, how does
Oh.
that interest level work?
Great question. So when you're logging in using your DOE email, we're automatically capturing your DBN, your building code, and what grade level you're in. So students who are in elementary school will not see young adult or adult books. Middle school students will not see adult books. They'll only see young adult and juvenile. And high school, or I should say 11th through 12th graders, will have access to all of the books in the collection. So if you're logging in with your student's account, you'll be limited to whatever your students see. As Melissa said, this is really intended for the students to be using. So if you have any other questions, you can let us know. Otherwise, we can look at other options, getting you logged into the public library app, using other means to get you into those collections. So that's how you log in on the app. You can also log in on the browser, which I'm going to do in just a moment. Sora is loaded into Teach Hub, so you'll see it right there. It's also just a website I had dropped in the chat, so you can just follow that direct link to the login page. This is what the login process looks like in the browser. It's exactly the same. You'll just sign in using the New York City Department of Education, use those credentials, and then you're going to be logged in. So all that said, let's take a look at the actual platform. We'll take you through some of the accessibility settings, how to check a book out, how to navigate Sora. And again, keep the questions coming. The chat has been really productive thus far. So I'm just going to share my other screen now. And I promise I've used Zoom before. I use it every day, but I always get stage fright.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
Yes. All right. So you should be seeing my screen now. And as I said, I'm just in the browser using Sora. The nice thing is whether your students will access this in the browser or on an app, it's exactly the same. Nothing looks different. So this will do for either instance. You're just going to click on My Schools, the New York City Department of Education. You shouldn't need to identify your individual school. It's centralized. It's all through the DOE. Sign in using this first option here. And again, this is just going to be for students at nycstudents.net, for staff members at schools.nyc.gov, and it should be pretty easy. So once you log in, and I don't have credentials, so you didn't see me put them in there, that's why. Once you log in, you should be taken to our Explore page. And so you'll notice that Sora has a few tabs at the bottom here, 4 tabs to navigate. The Explore tab is really just where your students will go to browse through books. This is where they can look through those collections that Melissa and her team have curated. Those CCD collections are here. May is Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. So you've got a great collection up there. I do want to pause for a moment to say that I've worked at Overdrive for just about 4 years now. And I've worked with hundreds of schools all over the country. And I've not worked with a school or district that has updated their curation as much as Melissa and her team have done with the Citywide Digital Library. Every week or couple of weeks, these lists are changing and evolving and new ones are being featured. And that helps students so much to find the type of books that are going to engage them, or to see that this is a dynamic collection that's going to change. There will be new books added. So your students are really going to enjoy that. As we scroll through here, you'll see there's an animation and illustration collection. So we've got books that are almost activity books where you would see things to do. And that's great for the summer period where, maybe they don't want to read a novel. They want to look at a book where it'll teach them to draw. Or we've got cookbooks in here. We've got books about space, a collection about race and diversity, and just different titles here that are great. If you haven't read Citizen by Claudia Rankine, highly recommend the audiobook there. Own voices, again, are so important. So you could come into any of these lists, body positivity, any of these lists, and if I click into one, you could copy the link. Oh, and we have a question in the chat. If the school isn't listed, can we choose NYC DOE? Yes, go ahead and choose NYC DOE.
And
But
that
if you,
should be your default.
yes,
Choose NYC DOE. Please do that. We did have some workarounds for schools that have their own Google domain. We are not encouraging use of that. We want everyone to be accessing the collection using their DOE credentials.
absolutely. So once I'm in a list here, you'll see I can browse through all of the books. This happens to be fairy tales, folklore, and mythology. I could also just copy the link here, send it right to a student so that they have access to the whole list. They can look through to see what they'd like to see. But if I scroll down, let's try Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. I'm just going to click on that title. And from here, you'll see how many copies there are. So for this one, there's one copy and it's available. You'll see the reading levels, the text difficulties. You'll see the language here as well. This one is in English. And if this is a book that I'd want to check out, I can just borrow it and the book will automatically open for me. So from here, I'll click the center of the screen. I can just scroll to the side. I can click through with my mouse. And you'll see I'm in the book, so I can just read this very easy reading experience. Your students will have no problem navigating, but there are some tools we want to show you. So the first tool up here in the right-hand corner, this will just go from 2 pages of text to 1. So your students that may be overwhelmed by the 2 pages may want to narrow it down. That would be a really good tool for them. I'm going to go back to 2. I like 2. But this second option here, the block letter A, is going to give you the reading settings. So from here, I can change the size of my text. So if my default text is too small, I can scale it up. I can also include accessibility sizes. So I can get even larger if I need some really large print text. I can change the backlighting. So by default, it will be white, but you'll see that mine was this sort of sepia tone, toned down a little bit. You could also use a dark or a high contrast mode. And then different fonts. And this is really great because I want to point out this Open Dyslexic font. So if your students have dyslexia or they have other reading difficulties where it's hard for them to concentrate on the words, this will weight each letter toward the bottom to help those students have a more enjoyable time reading. I point this out because all of these settings are sticky, which means that once I find the settings that are right for me and I close that down, every book that I open hereafter will have these settings already applied. So the accessibility tools are going to be really easy to locate, really easy to adjust, and then they're there. Some of these tools, like the backlighting and the different fonts, are also available for the website itself, so that when they're in Sora, they could make the entire site show up with that Open Dyslexic font or in a dark contrast mode. A good question that just came in, can we use the same account on phone and tablet and will reading be bookmarked or synced? Yes. So if you're logged in on multiple devices, which I usually am, I don't commute right now, but when I did, I'd listen to my audiobook in the car. And then as I went to my desk, maybe I'd pick it up on my computer and it syncs exactly to the same place. Again, if students forget their book in their locker, they're usually stuck. But in this instance, if they were to forget their device or leave it at grandma's house when they were visiting, as long as they can access on a different device, they have access to the book and exactly where they left off. A couple of other very neat tools that I want to show you is if I look at a word like spectacles, maybe I'm not familiar with spectacles. I'm going to click on that word, hold, and when I release, I have the option to define the word in the text. So now I have my dictionary, I've got synonyms and different things like that. And you'll see I can scroll down and go to Google Translate as well. So if I'm an ELL student, if I'm an MLL student, and I'm reading a book that's not in my native language, or I'm really struggling with some of the language skills, I can come here, translate to anything, any of the Google Translate languages, or I could use the listen tool
Spectacles
to get that pronunciation, to make sure that I'm hearing the word correctly. I'm going to back out of that. The nice thing about the definition tool here is that as your students go through and say, oh, I don't know that word, let me define that, let me define that. All of those definitions are saved so that you can access essentially what is a personalized vocabulary bank that your students have created for themselves based on words that they've encountered in the books they're actually reading. So it's a really good way to know what your students are struggling with, and they can then share that with their teachers via Google Classroom or as a PDF file, whatever it may be. The same way that I defined a word, I can come in here, click and hold, and I can highlight an entire passage. And now I can annotate. So Melissa gives me a hard time because I've shared that I was the student that I like to write in books, quite frankly. And
every time you say this, my heart
it
just
kills her.
it dies just a little bit.
I know it does.
I'm having no heart muscle left after that.
And she looks at me funny every time I say it. I know I'm really catching
Annotation
my look.
is awesome. However, not in the physical book that doesn't belong to you.
And that's the key. So when your students are checking out library books and they're writing in them, they're essentially defacing those books. But what's the alternative? The alternative is use post-it notes, and then you've got post-it notes in the book and you have to take them all out and move them. They could have a separate reading journal or a notebook open, or they could be taking notes in a separate window. Maybe they're using Google Classroom or something like that. Well, here you can just highlight the
charge for the iPad.
Sorry, 1 second. Now you can just highlight the words, highlight the passage, take a super smart note that my teacher will love, right? I can change the highlighter color, and it's saved in the text. And so what this does is a couple of things. If I scroll through the book, I can always come up to this bookmarks page here and jump back to that first note. So I can jump to my notes anytime within the book. When I return the book, I still have access to all my notes, all my highlights, my annotations within Sora. So even though the book's not checked out to me, I still have access to that work. And then thirdly, at any time, I can take those notes and highlights and export them to another place. I can export them to Google, say, and share them with my teacher. So I'm going to close this book and show you where that lives. If I go to the Home tab here, you can teachers can assign books if they have their own books for their school community, if they're doing curriculum work. So that lives in the Home tab. But you'll see my recently defined words, my notes and highlights. If I click into this book, the notes that I took appear here, and this pop-up is telling me, hey, you can export this to Google Drive. You can export this as a PDF. So it's all going to be saved to your account. It's very easy to sync. It's very easy to share with your teachers. If you're answering questions or working on an assignment, very easy to get there. For the sake of time, I want to show you just a couple of quick things. I do want to show you an audiobook. So let's look at a book like Everland Will Work. I'm going to borrow this. Audiobooks are fantastic. And if you haven't tried them, I really recommend it. Just try it for yourself. I see in the chat some folks have mentioned Libby. Try a Libby. Go get some audiobooks from your public library. It's a fantastic tool. I'm going to scroll ahead here just to a random mark. But what I want to show you are these tools up at the top here. So this is a
5. There it is. 1 through 5.
That's my default. So
My
I listen
default
on
too.
1.25.
We have a
And
lot
Melissa
in
mentioned-
common except writing in books, Regis.
Well, I'll get you on my side eventually.
Yeah, no.
But we like listening at a higher speed because I'll speak for myself here. I tune it out sometimes when the narrator's too slow. I find myself daydreaming, or they'll say something that triggers a thought about something else. When I listen at a faster speed, it holds my attention and I'm able to concentrate on the story. Alternatively, you may have students that prefer to listen, if I drag this down, listen at a slower speed. So maybe 0.85 is a little bit better for them, or 0.8 even. So I want to play it at 0.8 and let you listen.
Instead, I hear myself saying, "Don't keep him up too late with those silly fairy tales."
And so you can listen to that. You could slow it down even more. This is going to be great for students that are struggling with comprehension. Or if you want to hear how Melissa and I like to read.
And no pirate stories. He'll be awake all night. It's late. Blow that candle out. We're leaving when I return.
If there were just a few more voices, it would sound like a family reunion for me. That's why I like listening a little bit faster. We're all fast talkers.
It does
So
take me a second to listen to it to adjust my hearing of it. Because at first it's like, wait, that's really too fast. But then I listen for a little bit, and then I become very comfortable and pay attention. It's kind of like that. You know what it's like? I just thought of this. It's like when you jump into really ice cold water in a swimming pool, and then you're like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it takes a second.
Take the plunge. Adjust
The
your
brain
speed.
catches up. I guarantee, try it. You'll find whether it's faster or slower, you're probably not best suited at one time speed. Anyways, the other cool things that are here too is you've got a little sleep timer. So you could say, hey, at the end of the chapter, cut it off, or after 30 minutes, cut it off. This is great for students who want to put their phone aside. If you want to get some reading in before bed, like a lot of students do to catch up with their schoolwork, just put your phone aside, listen, let it shut off on its own. Or it's a great way too to just say, hey, I'm going to set this on my phone, set my phone aside so that I don't have other distractions. I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to do this for a little while. So it's a great tool there.
Or they know that they have to read 20 minutes a day. I mean, if that's
right.
if that's the goal for that individual student, then here's the way of doing 20 minutes a day. And so I set this often when I go to sleep, because I just listen to the book until I fall asleep. It's a great way of setting that timer and staying in using it as a way of slowly reading your way to sleep.
Yeah. And you can see, if you have a significant other, they'll thank you because you can turn your nightside lamp off.
Yes.
I have that problem with mine. My lamp is on too late most nights. So I'm going to press play again, but when I do this time, I'm going to click on this bookmark feature, and I want to show you what that does here.
She looks away. I wish you'd never grown up, she mumbles.
And so you'll see this little yellow bar has grown at the bottom here. Essentially what we've done is highlighted a passage the same way that we would do it in an audiobook. So if students do need audiobooks for the accessibility features, they can still highlight those passages, revisit them, come back to them at any time. So they're not losing the tools that they have in the ebook just because they're using an audiobook. And those would be saved in the same place as their other notes and highlights. A good question here, can you choose to stop audio at the end of a chapter? Absolutely. So when you click on this little crescent moon here, you'll see it gives me that option as long as the book has chapters. All right, so I'm going to close down. There are some other really great tools in Sora, but I want to just show you the last couple. We're not going to get to everything. Michael did drop the link to a website where you'll find lots of parent support materials, videos, teacher support materials that will walk you through some of the stuff we didn't get to today. One of the things I will mention is there are lots of read-alongs in Sora as well. So especially those who are at primary schools, if you're at working with elementary students, those are books that have the ebook and professional narration and will highlight the words as it reads aloud to you. What I want to show you, just a couple of things here, are some of the accessibility tools. So if I come into, while I'm not in a book, if I come into this side menu, you'll see I can go to general settings here. And this is where I can change the language of the platform. I can change to a dyslexic font or a high contrast mode. So the same accessibility tools that are within the book are also in the platform. One note about changing the language is it changes the language of the platform. It does not change the language of the books, right? The books still only have copyright permissions for whatever language they're printed in. But as Melissa noted, she's got lots of collections with books in other languages, and they're building those collections as well. The other thing that's here in the side menu is the ability to add that public library, like we've said. So I've added mine. All you have to do is come in here to add a public library, search for your library. If I go to Queens, it's still filtered based off of my age level, but I can come in here, check a book out, and when I go to borrow it, the first time I try to borrow a book, this is when it will ask for my public library card. Or if it's Queens, you can come down to the New York City Department of Education, sign in with those DOE credentials. So very easy, should be very easy to use there. But now if I go back.
If you think about this in the way that you're building readers, lifelong reading habits, lifelong library use, this helps us teach kids the importance of access and having a public library, a school library in their life. Because this is a platform, I'm hoping our little pre-K kids, our little 3K kids that are coming into the DOE are going to learn that a library is an essential part of their life, and that they will use this year after year after year after year, and that it will track them as a reader, a learner, and give them the tools they need for when they graduate and move on to only having the access of a public library. So this is helping them get to that point. This is building it into the culture of them as a learner, as a reader. And I think it's really important.
And as Melissa said, when they graduate, they'll be able to hop right into Libby, which some of you have noted. It's almost exactly the same platform. So they'll already have that experience. They'll already have that support. I'm going to switch from the Queen's Library back to my DOE account. And I want to show you one final thing. We mentioned books in other languages. We have those curated into lists, into collections that you'll see there, but you can also come into the search bar. You'll see that I'm selecting to search all of my libraries. So now that I have public libraries added as well, I'll search those in addition to the
limit that just to the DOE as well.
So this would be just the Citywide Digital Library now. And so if I go to more options, this is where I can search by language, right? I could select Spanish language books. I could search by audience level or reading level if you want to make sure your students are reading in the correct level for them. You can search for just those read-along books that I mentioned will read aloud and highlight the words for you.
I love read along, especially for our early readers. I mean, I think that they are so essential. Our ELLs, our MLL populations, I think those read along books are game changers. And
I just want to point out, for those students that don't have someone actively reading to them at home, it's a great way to mimic that. And we know that students who have books read aloud to them, their comprehension is much higher than their peers that don't have anyone reading to them. So this is a great tool for equity to allow any student to have that experience. A great question too in the chat, besides an iPad or a desktop, what type of device do you recommend for this? I'll tell you this, 90 to 95% of Sora usage across the country comes from Chromebooks because they're so widely available. We recommend whatever students have access to. I use a phone for Sora myself. I find that perfectly enjoyable. If you want to use something bigger, you mentioned an iPad, but if you have access to tablets, I also have like a Galaxy tablet, which is much more cost effective than iPads. They work really well. Any device that has access to the internet virtually will work with this. The one thing we don't recommend as much is Kindle, because it is very proprietary. Amazon doesn't like to play nice with other vendors. So
Kindle is not an approved, Amazon is not an approved vendor in the DOE, and Kindle is not an approved supported device. So that takes that off the table. I think that the device selection is really dependent on what the student has available to them and the individual choice of a student or a teacher. It's you as a reader to be able to select what works best for you. I have multiple laptops, multiple desktops, iPads, and a phone. And I tend to listen to audiobooks from my phone, and I tend to read more on my laptop.
I'm the same way. I read on my tablet.
You are, Regis.
I read on my tablet, but I listen on my phone.
Yeah,
because it just gives you flexibility.
Yeah, it's really dependent on the individual person, the individual reader. And I think that what's important to focus on here is having the choice, the value of choice, the value of choosing what speed to listen to something. It's independent of the platform. It's an individual selection. The understanding what language you want to read in, for outside of what you're required to read for school, but some people are more comfortable reading in their language, which could be Spanish, could be French, could be German, could be Russian, than they are in English. So it depends, really. It's so personal, and this gives our readers that opportunity to make those personal selections, what works for them. Even even the changing the font,
Yeah.
to a dyslexic font, or changing the background. I cannot look at a black background, but others cannot look at a white background. And so those are all personal choices. And we need to give students the opportunity to make those choices and be able to identify how they can read best. What is the environment? What are the tools that they need to read and excel best to their ability?
And Michael has dropped this link in the chat a couple of times. We'll make sure that you get it afterwards as well, though. This is a resource page. You don't need a login to get to this page. So you could share this with staff. You could share this with students. You'll see that the first page is for students, helps them log in very easily. But the second page is for educators. This will have some additional webinars, some videos there for support. And if you scroll down, some resource pages. So a quick getting started page for Sora, a page for families, an info sheet for staff members. And this last one, these are all social media graphics that you can use. They're already done for you. So you could easily grab one, put it in a tweet and blast it out, put it in a Facebook post, blast it out, and it's going to make that easy for you. The last thing that I want to mention is, and Melissa, I know we usually mention this, is the issue of privacy for students with ebooks and audiobooks. Go back, take yourself back to being a 13, 14, 15-year-old student and being self-conscious about what everyone thinks about you. And maybe there are books you need access to that would really help you, whether it's about body image issues, family issues, drug addiction, all of these things. When you're walking around with a jacket cover, you're essentially broadcasting to the world what you're reading and what you're going through or dealing with. Ebooks and audiobooks give you the privacy to be able to have that on your device. No one knows what you're reading. No one sees it besides you. So it really does support students accessing materials that they need access to. And that's the last thing that I want to say on my soapbox. I'll turn it back over to Melissa and team. And I just want to thank you all for listening to us, and I hope you find value in the Citywide Digital Library.
Thank you so much, Regis. There are still some questions coming in, so I don't jump yet. If you are not a teacher but work for DOE office, you can still have access to this. As long as you have a DOE email, you have access to this. So if your custodians have a DOE email, then they have access to this. Anyone with a DOE email credential has access to this.
Melissa, I'm
Any
just
other
going to jump right
questions?
in. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So we had a couple of questions regarding a lot of our family-facing liaisons that are on the line. They are, I mean, fantastic. First of all, this is amazing. I'm over here like, what can we do? I'm ready to send out, blast it out to all the students. This is awesome. Our family-facing liaisons are thinking about how can they use this information to create book clubs. What would be some of your tips or advice on how can we, as family-facing liaisons, use this free platform to promote student engagement using this all citywide library?
So one thing that we did not talk about is Advantage accounts. And Advantage accounts are accounts that are set up at the school level, basically where you're building and procuring your own titles. And in those Advantage accounts, if you have established a collection, you're able to assign those titles to individual students. And so what we're building in the Citywide Digital Library that we presented today is the collection that's available for everybody. But Overdrive does have the advantage, the opportunity to select and build a collection at the school level. So if you do want that, to be able to assign or select specific titles just for your school, you can email Regis directly. If you have a school librarian at your fingertips, you have a school library, I would make sure to connect with your school librarian because they most likely have already established an Advantage account for your school. And you could work with them to help create book clubs and curate additional titles. Does that help?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. My goodness. We have also a question regarding D75 students? Is this
Yeah.
accessible for D75 students?
Absolutely. Every D75 student should have access to a library. If they don't have access to a library, then you please contact me, because they're a D75 school should be, if they are on a shared campus, they should be a part of that school library program and should be receiving resources and instruction from the school librarian. They also all have DOE email accounts and they can access this collection. In fact, I think it's even more important because of the accessibility features that help differentiate the collection for different readers and learners.
We have another question in the chat. For Advantage accounts, the school would have to purchase the books, right?
Yes. Yes. So we've established one citywide digital library for all of the DOE. If you want to create your own collection at your school, or build a school library collection on Sora, you do it with an Advantage account. But you don't need an Advantage account to access the Citywide Digital Library.
We have another question in the chat. Besides an iPad or a desktop, what type of device do you recommend for this? I'm looking for something more accessible for parents if they don't have iPads.
I think it's really dependent on the individual user. As I mentioned before, you know, everyone has their own comfort level with technology. A lot of parents have smartphones and that might be their only device that's available to them. It is accessible on a smartphone of downloading the Sora app. If students have Chromebooks, if they were issued a DOE iPad, you know, it's accessible on those platforms as well. And as they get older and they might be using different devices, technology is changing. Anything that has a Wi-Fi connection, an internet browser, they can access it on. You don't have to access it via the app. You can access it via Safari or Chrome or whatever browser that you're using.
Excellent. I think that's pretty much the questions that I see on the chat. This was fantastic. I know you guys have to jump off now. But we really appreciate, I mean, oh my goodness, this is just in time for summer. We're promoting summer engagement. We call it summer recharge. So this is exactly what our parents need at this time. And a lot of our parent coordinators and our district liaisons, FLCs, FSCs, are promoting events for parents. I see, guys, if we're looking for something free to give away out of these events, we can just kind of like, we just mentioned all the outreach materials, we'll print them out and just say, or we'll email them and says, hey, this is a free gift. Because it is free, everything is free and accessible. And I mean, what else? I mean, I'm just excited. I'm sitting over here like all these things that we can do.
I said at the beginning of the session that your minds would be blown, and I hope I blew them all.
You really did.
So what I dropped into the chat was the link to our professional learning calendar. Being library services, we provide professional learning opportunities for teachers and librarians, parent coordinators. Regis and I will be doing a summer reading, summer rising PD all through the May and June. It's our summer series with Sora. I'm naming it Summer Series with Sora. There you go. So if you are interested, feel free to register. You will automatically receive the recording of that session. It will be very similar to this one, but it just, you know, it will help you maximize the use of the platform, and feel free to share it with your teachers. So if your teachers are not familiar with the Citywide Digital Library, encourage them to attend. The sessions are going to be on Wednesday, and our entire calendar of other professional learning opportunities are available there. If your school is looking for a school librarian, I will put a plug in. Every school should have a school library accessible to your students. If you are looking to hire a certified school librarian, I have resumes of qualified and effective librarians. So please email me at mjacobs7@schools.nyc.gov.
This might be a silly question. This is a question for me. Do you guys have any authors who can do a live training that could come in, and any other authors that we are promoting on the site?
So we do have author events throughout the school year,
okay.
but we're not doing anything specific right now or promoting specific authors.
Okay, thank you so much, Melissa and Regis. You guys are fantastic. We can't wait to share this virtual citywide platform for our students. This is great. This is all books, student empowerment, parent empowerment. And we thank you for joining our Digital Friday. This was awesome.
Fabulous. Any questions, again, please send them to
I have a question.
Yes.
My
yeah.
question is, can this be downloaded in the device, and how long is going to be in the device?
It was pushed out to all iPads or at DOE issued iPads. It's available in Teach Hub, and you can download it on your device. It's not going away. There's no subscription cost to you. We are building and we are contributing additional funding to build the collection up more.
So it's only for the student iPad, nothing else. You can divide it on your own.
You could put it on any device that you want to put it on. You could put it on your Chromebook. You could put it on your laptop. You could put it on an iPad. You could put it on your phone, any device. It's completely device agnostic, meaning it is accessible from any device.
Okay, and then it doesn't matter. There's no limit how long it's going to be stay, or you just, as long as you download it, you can just, it's your own to read.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
books are borrowed for 2 weeks, 14
Thank you.
days.
Do you have any like a video presentation for the because I took some the screenshot. I want to give the parents workshop to my parents, but do you have any short video that explain this the program?
So if you go to the Discover Sora page and we could drop it in the chat again. We have resources and videos on that page.
Okay.
There are also family-facing, parent-facing information sheets that we've translated into all of the DOE languages.
Is that the one that just dropped in the chat?
Yes, and I'm also dropping a second one where you'll find some PowerPoint templates that you can use.
Because whenever we do the workshop, instead of the verbal, the visual thing is very important and powerful. Thank you so much.
We created all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question. I think
thank
we're
you.
running out of time. And once again, we thank everyone. We thank Regis. We thank Melissa for joining us. Guys, I see this as, again, if you're hosting town halls, parent-teacher conferences are coming up again. This was, guys, I mean, Digital Fridays, we want to thank Laura, Lisa, Cynthia, Latikwa, I'm sorry, I said Cynthia, Christina, for just, they're wonderful, just for connecting us again for with wonderful resources and our wonderful colleagues. These are our colleagues at DOE. So thank you,
Have
colleagues.
a great weekend and thank you so much. I am going to jump.
Thank you.
I got another meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
So feel free to email if you have any additional questions or thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Regis. We really appreciate it. So just to quickly wrap us up, because I know there are some folks who have been able to do it in the chat, but just in case you've missed it, we have been putting in the attendance link. So I'll repost one more time. The name of this session, Citywide Digital Library on Sora. So the way our attendance sheet works is all of our classes are listed in alphabetical order. So just, scroll on down to the C's. You should see it, Citywide Digital Library on Sora. That is the session title for today. Make sure you put in all your pertinent details. You'll get a follow-up email before the end of today with, our survey, Gizmo survey, CTLE, all that good stuff. But thank you all so much for showing up today. It sounds like, just based off of the chat and everything I was seeing and our little Q&A, sounds like folks really love Sora, and I knew you would. It's such an amazing resource. And if you hadn't really seen it, before today, then I think you've got some stuff to kind of look at over the weekend, kind of, explore the tool so that you can then disseminate this information to your families.
In the fish market.
Okay, I'm just gonna, I think I'm getting some people unmuting when they maybe shouldn't, so I'm gonna just mute folks. But I do want to be clear, and I know they said it a bunch of times, but the app is on the DOE iPad. So I happen to have a DOE issued iPad, and I can tell you right now, if you're struggling to find it, it's actually under the library apps. In case you're not aware, go to where it says library apps. You'll actually see several, and then you have the ability to open up Sora. So if you want to direct families who have the library, who have the DOE issued iPads as to where this resource is, it is under library apps. Okay, so I'm on the DOE issued device. And it's one of the kind of, you have to open it up because, you know, I have my background on, so it's hard. Let me just take it off right now. 1 second, folks. There we go. So here's my DOE issued device, and you'll see it's under library apps, and then you can click where it says Sora, okay? But it's not just a standalone app. So if you were struggling as to where it was, that's where it is. And again, please share this resource out. I think it's going to be such a game changer for your communities and also for you, because again, you have access to this too. You could be checking out books on Sora. So let's all take advantage of like the free goodies the DOE has to offer, right? Free is always the magic word, right, Derry?
Free is always my favorite appetite, my favorite dish.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're using Sora, if you took after this presentation, if you're hosting an event, if you're doing a town hall, if you're sending out this information to parents, we want to know. I mean, Laura, don't we want to know everything that the parent coordinator is doing? Because we love kind of like spotlighting you guys and say, hey, these are what the PCs, FLCs are doing. So if you're turnkeying this information, feel free to send me an email or drop it or send it to face@schools.nyc.gov. Sometimes the emails, I get a lot of emails, so I won't be able to kind of see it. But if you send it to the face inbox, or better yet, post it on the parent coordinator team's channel. That's the best. Actually, you know what? Send it over there so that we can all see it. So Laura, I think that we're full. I'm leaving full right now. This was awesome.
Oh, Dory, I have a one question. I just want to know, do you have any information about the school survey? Are you going to hold any training for the school survey, parent survey?
We just watch party on the school survey. So what I can do is I can resend it. But you can check out, go onto the PC website, and we have the pre-recorded video posted there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right, folks. So with that, we are going to end things. It's officially 11:30, and we know that many folks have to kind of head on to their next meetings. So again, thank you all so much.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.
Can you repeat that? Where can we get the training for the survey, the student parent survey?
Oh, the PC website. I'll add it to the parent coordinator team channel. And thank you, Linda, for letting us know that we can't, no one can post on the chat. So we'll just fix that because we want to hear from you guys. We want to be able to, this is a platform where we're learning and growing and sharing information together. So we will definitely check out why you can't post. But for the survey, I'll put it also in the team channel because there's also, if you have questions regarding the survey, there's an informational session. All right, I guess we are muting, so that means that's our cue to go. And we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful weekend, and make sure you check out the
what
mental
happened
health.
to the attendance? The attendance.
We have one last thing actually to do. The attendance is in the chat. But before we go, and I know some folks are going to trickle out, but can we all say a really quick happy birthday to Derry?
Oh yeah.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday, Gary.
You're making me red.
Happy birthday.
Can somebody sing it to me in Spanish now?
No, they go like this. Estas son las mañanitas. ¿Quién se lo sabe?
Love you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the birthday love.
Derry,
mucho más.
you know, 21, you know, turning 21 was a great milestone right now.
Wow.
Bye, everybody. Appreciate the love. Thank you
Bye,
so much, Laura.
everyone.
Thank you so much, team. This is your
Bye-bye.
Digital Friday team,
birthday.
and we're super excited to say bye and have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, bye-bye.